In this video we're going to be looking to draw a koru like this one here. Um, so the skills that we're hoping to learn about are the selection tool, the direct selection tool, the pen tool, smooth tool, colors and gradients, and gradient tool. And I guess actually to that list I could add layers. The file that you'll be provided will look like this, and we're just going to basically trace around that. But before we start, I want you to make sure that your workspace is in Essentials Classic mode, as this is the same as the previous tutorials that you've been doing. You can either set that here, or you can go to Window, Workspace, and choose it here. Alright, that'll make it, you have the double row here, and it'll be similar similar workspace that you're used to in the previous tutorials. Okay, now we want to set up the layers. So to do that, you want to either click on this layers icon. If that's not there, you can find it under Windows and then scroll down to layers, and that will bring up this screen. I want you to imagine layers like a stack of paper. So we're pretty much going to have a layer on top of this layer, which is like a tracing piece of paper, and this layer will be below that, which is like if you were putting that tracing piece of paper onto a book and tracing an object. This is the book. So the first thing we want to do is name this layer. We'll just call this Koru. And now we want to make a new layer on top of that. To do that, we click on this little icon here, create new layer, and we're going to give this a name. We'll call that my Koru. Cool. There's nothing on this layer at this stage. What I want you to do is also lock this layer. So here there's two icons. There's an eye, which is to show the visibility. I can turn that on and off. And here there is a lock button. If I click on that, I can no longer select this object. This object is now locked. Okay, so we want to lock the Koru layer so that we are only drawing on my Koru layer. Because later on what that means is we can turn this layer off and we've just got our Koru to deal with. So to draw the Koru, we're going to be using the pen tool, which is this one over here on the left hand side. You can either select there or press P. That will change the cursor into this little pen tool. And basically the way the pen works is if I click without dragging, just click, 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 so click, 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 I get sharp angles to make my shape. However, if I click and then click and drag, you can see it starts curving it. It creates these little anchors as you pull out. These anchors define the size and shape of any curve. The sharper the angle, the sharper the curve is. So that would be no curve because it's following the line of the line. However, if you went over there, you can see the curve's much stronger. And as I drag that out, the curve gets bigger. Okay? So that's pretty much how it works. But you notice as I draw at the moment, there's a fill there, which is not ideal, because if I was to use that now, if I clicked there and started trying to trace it around, it makes things quite tough because I've got nothing in the middle. So we want to set up that first. Okay, to do that, we want to make sure that the fill here is empty. So we're going to select the fill. And if I select this box, that's the stroke. This is the fill, and click on this little icon here, or push /. That will make sure there is no fill. To set the stroke, I want to make sure that's selected. Double click on that and choose a color. I'll just choose red. Click on OK. Now, if I use the pen tool, you can see I've got a nice red line there. Yep, but there's no fill, which is what we want. So, as we are tracing this Koru, I want you to think of north, east, south, west. Well, that I mean, we'll start there, then I want you to go to the northmost point of the Koru, and then the eastmost point of the Koru, the southmost point of the Koru, the westmost point of the Koru, and then north, and then south. So it pretty much means you're going to be doing it like this. Clicking there, clicking there, clicking there, clicking there, clicking there, clicking there, working all the way in. So north, east, south, west, north, east, south, west. Yep. So let's get started. I'll turn off that layer so that we can't see it anymore. So now if I'm drawing, it'll just be drawing on my Koru. Select the pen tool, set up the colors. I've got to do that again, unfortunately. So I'll set it as red and start clicking. So I'm going to click at the beginning. All right, that was just a single click. Then go to the northmost position and click and drag away and get the curve roughly right. If it's not exactly the same, that's okay. In the next step, we're going to come and tidy it up. Then I'm going to go to the eastmost position, click and drag away, so it's roughly the same. Southmost position, click and drag away. Westmost position, click and drag away. Once again, if it's not exactly the same, I don't mind. I'll fix it up in the next step. North, east, south, west. That one's terrible, but we'll fix it up later. And then we'll do this one, and then we're just going to reverse the process. Come back down here, south, east, north, west, south, going around in a circle. Cool. So there's my shape. You can see it's not perfect, but that's okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the direct selection tool, which is A, which enables me, if I click on a point, I can see these anchor points. Remember, if I click on one, it works like a seesaw. If I click on that one, the other one changes as well, which is not always what we want. So what we want to do is I'm going to find points where it doesn't look quite right, and for now I'm going to change this back to a 2-point line, just so it's easier to see where it's not quite right. And I'm going to, so I can see this side of the curve looks pretty good, however this side of the curve doesn't look very good. Alright, so I'm going to click on this anchor and hold down the Alt key, and it changes the cursor there, you can see. Now if I click on this, you can see it only changes this side of the anchor. Alright, so I'm just going to modify this side to look right. I don't mind if this looks a bit abrupt, because that's the next stage. So going around. Alright, this one looks a bit, this side looks pretty good, this side here looks bad. So I'm going to click on that point, hold down Alt, click here, and play around with it until it looks right. It might be this one I've got to change. Cool, getting there. I'm going to zoom in. I can do that with, I'm going to zoom in. I can do that by clicking on this tool and just clicking to zoom in. Might make it easier. I'm now going to drag that into position. I'm going to use the Alt key once again, click and hold, and then drag this so it looks about right. Cool. I don't mind if that angle is not exactly right. That's going to be the next step. Alright, this one looks a bit off. Hold down the Alt key, drag. That one looks alright. This one doesn't look right. Alt key. Move that down to there. Alt key. Alt key. Alright, that's pretty good. Alt key. Alright, so this one looks pretty bad. So once again, I'll move that point so it's in the right location. Then I'll use the Alt key to change that curve. And up here, I'll use the Alt key to change that curve. And I'll zoom out. So to zoom out, I can click on the magnifying glass and use the minus, use the mouse key. And cool. I seem to have been missing a bit of a curve there. If you find you're missing part, all you have to do is use the pen tool and see how that means when the icon changes to that, it means it's going to pick up where it left off. So if I click there and then click there, alright, I'll finish the shape. Alright, the next thing I want to do is see how this line here looks a bit weird and this is not quite smooth. The good thing about Illustrator is it comes with a built-in smoothing tool. To find that, you want to scroll down into this one here, the shaper tool, click and hold, and you can get the smoothing tool. Right. To use the smoothing tool, you want to click on the shape first, click on the smoothing tool, and then just pretty much rub the mouse over the areas you want to smooth out. So I want to use this, smooth this out. You notice as I do that, it automatically makes the line smooth, hence the name, smoothing tool. As I go around. So basically the smoothing tool is for people like me who aren't good artists. It can actually fill in the blank, and so we actually look like we know what we're doing. Okay, and we're basically there. It's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to add a fill. To add a fill, We want to come over here, and if I wanted to do a solid color, I could just click on that background color and then choose the color I wanted. Done. Okay. If you want to add a gradient, over here is the gradient tool. It's the one that looks like a gradient here. If I do that and click on the shape, it'll come up with this. Okay. If I want to change a color, I can click on this icon here, and that will expand the gradient toolbox. Now there's a few options here. This is a linear gradient, which follows the line. This is a radial gradient, which means it radiates out from the point, and this is a free form, so I can set the individual points. We're not going to do that. So I can set the gradient tool. Now if I want to change the color, I can just double click on that little point there and choose what color I want that point to be. I'll go back to gradient linear tool just to emphasize that. If I click on this point, I can choose the color I want there. So double click here. Comes up with the gradient tool. If I want to make that end black, click on that one. I want to make that end white. You can see how it works. This line here is where the color transitions. So I could click on that and drag it across, and that's the point the color transitions from one to another, the center of the transition. If I want to change it to a color gradient, I can double click on the color slider here and choose this little option here and choose RGB. At that point I can choose a color. So I could choose that green at that end, double click over here, and it's already at RGB, and choose a different color over there, and that's how it works. If I wanted to add other transitions to the gradient, you see when I hover below the line, it comes up with a plus, so I could add another color at that point. Maybe I want at that point it to be blue, so it's going to transition from a green to a blue to a green again. It's up to you. I think for the Koru that the radial gradient probably looks the best. If you wanted to, you can move that line around. If you wanted to, you can move that line around, so you can choose where the center is. You can reshape it slightly if you wanted to. Yeah, and I think it kind of gives it, and I'll get rid of the center one. I think doing that kind of gives it more of a 3D sort of effect. And there you have it. Oops. And there you have it. That is our Koru. I probably want to get rid of that line around the outside actually. So there you go. That is our Koru.